Thank you. So now our program says that we have a secret speaker. And this is a person who is widely recognized as international human rights activist. He is recognized with numerous awards, serves on the boards of a lot of organizations, and he's also co-founder of and the board president of the all-volunteer Harvey Milk Foundation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to welcome to this floor Stuart Milk.
Thank you. You know, I only found out a few days ago that I was your secret speaker.
That's a secret.
It was a very good secret. And it actually reminds me of 2013 when my friend, President Obama, called me and said, you know, we're going to start giving out a Harvey Milk Champion of Change Award at the White House. And we'd like you to come and be part of that ceremony, and we'll celebrate folks who followed in your uncle's footsteps, serving openly as LGBT elected or appointed officials. And the recipients, all 14 of them, were people that I knew. Our first openly gay senator, first openly gay secretary or minister of the interior, and we met. As all the people were assembled in the big East Room of the White House, we met in the Roosevelt Room, a very historic room, and we didn't know who principal at the White House would be speaking or would be the keynote speaker. And so we were all, you know, including my friends, these wonderful historic, openly LGBT elected officials and appointed officials, and we were wondering, would it be President Obama, would it be the Vice President, would it be the First Lady, because with world events, you never know who's going to be the principal at an event like that. And Valerie Jarrett, the senior advisor to the President, walked in the room, and she said, I want to let you all know who our keynote speaker is. I know you're all excited, and it is Stuart Milk. And, you know, we were all looking around, including me, who was going to be. And I can tell you that my friends who've worked with me a long time, although they clearly, I think, appreciate me, they were a little disappointed. But the young White House interns actually did like the speech that I did not plan. So hopefully what I say today will resonate. I was asked by Christine I think a few days ago to speak about the American perspective on religious freedom and on freedom of speech. So I had the pleasure of watching this morning some of the speeches through this live stream. And you know, one of the things that I like about being in person is that I don't scribble things when people are talking in front of me, but I was able to do that. And I wanted to respond. Now, let me tell you that on freedom of speech, America has a very unique place in the world. And we've been doing work at the Harvey Milk Foundation in Italy for over a decade. Italy has a law against hate speech. My Italian activist friends throughout Italy keep asking me to speak on that subject, even though after I speak, they don't necessarily like what I have to say. Yet they still keep asking me. Last year, we did 17 prides in northern Italy, and they asked me to speak at all of them on freedom of speech. So in the US, we have our very First Amendment. The First Amendment of our Constitution is only one sentence. Like I said, I was not prepared to speak, so give me a moment with technology and I'll pull it up, because I don't want to get any of it wrong. And that sentence is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's it. As my friends who heard me yesterday at the Stockholm University heard me say, our Constitution is one of the few things that we have in the US that's really old compared to the rest of the world. I mean, when I'm in Turkey or in Italy, where we have, thousands of years of history, invariably a official will hold up the US Constitution and say we have a representative who has behind him the oldest people's constitution in the world, continuous constitution. Our Supreme Court's role is to interpret the Constitution and the acts of Congress. And when it comes to free speech, there is no exceptions. One of your earlier speakers quoted Eleanor Roosevelt, who was one of the designers and founders behind the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But Eleanor Roosevelt in 1947, 1949, and 1950 said, "My perspective on the freedom of speech is similar to Justice Brandeis, one of our most liberal and influential justices, who said those who won our independence by revolution were not cowards. They did not fear political change. They did not exalt order at the cost of liberty. To courageous, self-reliant men and women with confidence in the power of free and fearless reasoning applied through the process of popular government, no danger from speech can be denied, clear and present, unless the incidence by that evil apprehended is so eminent, such as yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. If there is no time to expose through discussion the falsehood or fallacies of speech, we can consider some restriction. But that is a rarity. To avert the evil by the process of education, the remedy must be applied through more speech, not through ever enforcing silence. It's one of the most important values in our Constitution. No matter how adherent the speech is, no matter how that speech at its essence is inciting hatred and devaluation of even human beings, that speech is considered absolutely vital. In fact, in a 2017 opinion, again on free speech, our most pro-LGBT justice, Justice Anthony Kennedy, with the backing of the full court, expounded again on free speech, saying, "The idea that the government may restrict speech expresses ideas that offend, speech that expresses ideas that offend, strikes at the heart of the First Amendment. Speech that demeans on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, disability, sexual orientation, or any other similar ground is hateful. It's repugnant. But the proudest boast of our free speech jurisprudence is that we protect the freedom to express that thought, even the thought that we hate. A law found to discriminate based on viewpoint is an egregious form of content discrimination, which is presumably unconstitutional. A law that can be directed against speech found offensive to some portion of the public can be turned against a minority and dissenting views to the detriment of us all. The First Amendment does not entrust that power to the government, to the governance benevolence. Instead, any reliance must be on the substantial safeguards of free and open discussion in a democratic society." So that is really the US perspective, and you can look at a host of really very influential US thinkers who have backed that. I certainly understand here in Europe the laws against hate speech. But for those of you who would, I side with our justices. I think it's a slippery slope when you limit speech, because as we have seen here, I know earlier speakers had talked about what's happening in Hungary and in Poland, where constitutional courts are taken away their right to interpret the Constitution. You know, it is vitally important that we don't allow, in my opinion, the popular view or a populist view to determine what type of speech we have. We need to have open discussion, and we need to be able to present all sides. And if you don't agree with that, then I would say, you know, leave it here on the seat. Don't take it with you. I also wanted to comment about, Christine and I talked about what's happening in the US right now. And so let me tell you that I have tremendous frustrations with the current administration. That's putting it lightly. And my Harvey Milk Foundation hat off. I was a surrogate for Hillary Clinton and worked hard to try to get her elected. The Milk Foundation is doing global work, and most of our work is done through back channels. We have so many great organizations that do naming and shaming. You had a couple speakers from them today, like Amnesty International and All Out. These are great organizations that will actually put people and their words and their policies out into the globe, so that we know when people are really doing very detrimental things to basic human rights. But the Milk Foundation, we do work behind closed doors. We believe in having discussions. And I can tell you that I have been invited to this White House. I haven't gone, and I won't go, mainly because at this point I don't believe that that meeting would be kept private and there would be an open discussion. It would be used for some distorted view of the current administration. But let me also be fair to this administration and tell you that President Obama's executive order that requires every every U.S. embassy and U.S. organization that operates globally to support LGBT people has not been taken down. That is in place. What's been taken down is the money. And it's not just for LGBT people. The money for doing any type of civil society work has evaporated. But that's still down. And I've done some controversial things. There are 2 Donald Trump appointees that I have supported their confirmation. And kind of got some attack on one of them and not the other. People don't mention one. So one is an openly gay, our first ever openly gay ambassador to a G7 nation, which happened about a month ago. Rick Grinnell was appointed and confirmed by the Senate, bipartisan confirmation, to be ambassador to Germany. Rick is a openly LGBT Republican. Don't quite understand them. And I don't agree with a lot of Rick's policies, but he is actually one of our historical pro-LGBT figures in American politics. He was Mitt Romney's press spokesperson for about 3 weeks. He was the first openly gay press spokesperson for a major Republican candidate for office, but social conservatives forced him off of that campaign. When marriage equality came up, he was the first person to support marriage equality in both Windsor and Offerdale, offering briefs in support of marriage equality. He publicly married his spouse. He's been a huge supporter on the global stage of LGBT equality, and he worked at the State Department. He was the longest-serving spokesperson of the State Department. So because he's a Donald Trump appointee doesn't mean that he doesn't have our back. He does. The other person is, it's important for me to mention her because we're here in the Baltics. Her name is Kai Feldlum. She is an openly lesbian, very accomplished attorney and professor, and she was first appointed to our Equal Employment Opportunities Commission by President Obama in 2009. She was not confirmed. We had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, but she was seen as so liberal, as such an ardent feminist and LGBT rights supporter that he had to do a recess confirmation on her, a recess appointment, avoiding the confirmation process. Donald Trump reappointed her in December of 2017. Her confirmation is still pending. There's very few positives that I can say of our current administration, but there are some. But in the US, we have a vigorous civil society movement. We have great hopes of having a